It's about as easy to configure for basic operation. If you've installed Postfix, you'll find the appropriate configuration files in the etc/postfix directory. You might notice some similarities between these files and SendMail configuration files. And there are similarities. The access file for Postfix is functionally equivalent to the access file for SendMail. The virtual file for Postfix is functionally equivalent to the virt user table file for SendMail. Both Postfix and SendMail use the etc/aliases configuration file in the same way. And you can edit those files as needed. The only file you absolutely need to change for Postfix is the main.cf file. And there are 3 directives of interest. First, there's my domain, which should be set to the domain name used on your local network. I use example.net. You should use the domain on your local network or the domain you're told to use during your exam. The Init Interfaces directive specifies where Postfix listens. By default, it listens only to the local host system. And if you're setting up Postfix for a network, you don't want that. So I comment this out and make the Init Interfaces directive listen to all interfaces. The final directive is My Networks, which sets up trusted networks for Postfix. This sample directive would set up this IP network address as a trusted network, but I have a different IP trusted network, so I substitute accordingly. Of course, I want to keep the local host system as a trusted address, so I keep this address shown here. If I've made any changes to the etc/aliases configuration file, I process it with the postalias command. If I make any changes to other files in the etc/postfix directory, I can process them with the postmap command. And once all these files are processed, I start the Postfix service with the postfix start command. I make sure Postfix is set to start the next time I boot Linux. But almost as important, I also need to make sure that SendMail is disabled, because both services can't work at the same time. I turn off the SendMail service, and I make sure SendMail does not start the next time I boot Linux. There we go.